So the question is, what I would like to present you is a research what I'm doing for a couple of years now, let's say in the last 15 years. It's a question about relocation, or Americans call it managed retreat, in Europe. Because most of the literature, when you screw around, you can find a lot of planned relocation in the US, in the Global South, in Fiji, in the Maldives, and so on. But also here in Europe, we're actually using planned relocation as an option. What I would like to show you is a little bit the complex situation, or the complicated situation in terms of governance. So I'm not a designer, I'm not an architect, I don't care about designing, I'm caring about planning, I'm caring about governance, and that's something I would like to show you a little bit. The thing is and that's the first start what we're doing about planned relocation. That means, as an example, the same building, the same family, what we observed and was more like not only once we talked to a family in Upper Austria, in Austria, it's saying how this looks like for them. This was the original building. Most of you would say that's not really nicely, it's not nice design. But at the end of the day, over the years, they start accepting the relocation process, and the relocation means what already Joel has said, we displace person and people. So it's really, we built a new house somewhere else. In this case, would say, yeah, who cares? Most of the people who should be happy to move out, but keep in mind that in Austria, we have buildings which are more than 400, 500 years old. You're from Switzerland, we have the same issues in Switzerland, where we have the same family owning the same house, where they grow up, the grandparents, the sons, and everyone in the whole family lived there forever. And now you, as a planner, as a public administration, come together and say, you get rid of this place. You can imagine how happy these people are and saying, fantastic, we love this idea. And this is one issue why we're not talking really much about planned relocation in Europe. You don't find 20,000 articles in New York Times and saying how grateful people are to accept planned relocation. We don't speak in the Zeit, we don't speak in the Guardian about this issue, because the problem is it's a highly political, controversial debate. And therefore, also, if you look and sneak in a little bit to find case studies, it's very hard, even for us as scientists, to find planned relocation, because nobody wants really to talk with you. It is stigmatized. I have to be relocated. How it looks like with my neighborhood. The thing is it's highly politically, therefore it's also not really used, but we know we have to do it. It's except now in Platten in Switzerland, it's the best example. We rebuilt the same place again in the same place. You saw the picture of Ahrweiler in Germany. What we're doing, we built the same houses in the same place where they completely were destroyed. The reason is why we're doing it, because we don't like to talk about this issue. It goes about compensation, it goes about engagement, it goes about responsibility, who is involved, who makes the decision-making process, and especially, this is in Europe, we talk about property rights. You own a house, you can choose whatever you liked with this house, but this also means if you accept planned relocation, it needs to be voluntary. You have to accept it. These are examples, some of that I would like to show you. No, planned relocation is actually also in Europe. We don't find them, but if you sneak around, you can find some of these examples. What this looks like, we're not talking about billions of people or millions of people or thousands of people. There's always a very small number. For example, in Upper Austria, it's something like 800 people were moved. Most of you would say, and that's an example of what we heard afterwards in Jakarta, who cares about 800? For a European, it is quite a lot of people because it makes quite a lot of effort. And some of this relocation process took us 20 and more years. It's not like in 2 days we solved the whole problem. Let's jump in why it's that so complicated and why it's so annoying to work on this. And this is one of the examples why it's so complicated and it takes us time, because the governance arrangement is super complicated. There are many people involved, from engineers, from planners. The Ministry of Finance, for example, is involved. Why? Because they're responsible for compensating. They have to judge the value of the building and saying, okay, this is worth that you get public administration money. It's taxpayer money. It's not charity money. It's not insurance money. Taxpayer money. Your tax, my tax, we have to pay for relocate. So you can see there's a lot of people going on. You need a highly coordinated process between the national, regional, local level, sometimes even the European level. So you see quite a lot of different actors, different regulations, different strategies, understanding how we would like to organize planned relocation. The second thing what we observed was okay, what does it mean about timing? How important is timing? Is timing an issue? Should we wait till the flood and then we offer the planned relocation process? Because everyone is suffering after flooding, then everyone is accepting relocation. That was the same like in Platten in Switzerland. Everyone should move out because it's destroyed. What we observed is actually not the case. We saw in several cases where there was a flood event and people rejected 100%. Why? Because they want, like in Ahrweiler and in Platten, we want to rebuild the same place there. We want a technical mitigation method, a dam, construction, maybe a little bit nature-based solution, if we have to accept it. But the thing is like that, we are not accepting and waiting for a relocation process. Why it's such interesting and how we call it in the science, it means like pre-signals. So what does it mean? So same like what we heard today with the Dutch ministry. We need time. We need time in advance to talk to people, to convince them, or let's say at least to argue with them, you get relocated. It's not an option B to be protected by them. No, it's really relocation. And this might take 7, 8, 9 years beforehand, before they really accept these things over there. The second question was, how important is compensation? Is financial reason really important? Or, for example, is more important place attachment? The question was in the science, and especially social scientists would say, place attachment is the most important thing. Place identification. We were grow up there for 400 years. We know where is the church. We know where is the cemetery. We know where is the trees. Where I kissed my girlfriend the first time. This is what we think over there. In the reality was, no, it's not that important issue. It's actually economic dimension. Why is that the case? Because relocation means you have to buy a new land, a new plot, a new house. That means you need financial resources to build over there. If you get, for example, like in the UK, no compensation, therefore it's also the argument or the motivation to relocate quite low. Why? Well, I'm losing the place where I'm living, and second thing, I get no compensation from the government to build a new plot. What we saw, okay, for example, in some countries, you get 80% of the building value. In the US, you get even more, 100% plus the green land or grassland get compensated. You see, there's no standardized approach. There's not one fixed rule, everyone got 80%. No, this is the same like the governance arrangement. And if you work in international government, you will also find different compensation schemes. It's fun for you because it makes everything a little bit more problematic. The second thing is, looks over there, was the question about long-term residents, and we call it newcomers. Newcomers are the people in that case that left the brutal, awful, ugly city, finally to move in the green space and have their house in the green. This, in fact, were the much more problematic guys than, for example, the families that lived more than 400 years. Why that? Because they finally left this horrible city to have a nice spot in the green space. And they were really distressed about moving again. The third question was, how important is participation, or is participation really an issue? Is it where it quite coming from? And what is in reality saying, in most of the participation process in Europe is a top-down approach, what we heard beforehand. Engineers are telling, this is a zone where we would like to remove. There is no way for providing a dam, so leave it or stay it. But is mainly not engaging, we're quite interactive with them. What is the reason? This is always the question, how much information are you giving? Are you giving them information? Are you starting a participation process? For example, in Austria, we figure out something very interesting. They tried to make some information available, and then there was a protest group. And the first question was, the protest group actually the people that would like to remove? The people have to relocate? No. So we're actually the neighbors who stayed on the safe side. Why? Because they were jealous. They said, well, they get 80% of their building value. Why in the hell should they get compensated? Because they even know they're living in a floodplain. So it's also a neighborhood conflicts where they engage and also contradict the whole things over there. What we learned and what makes it quite interesting, first of all, is the picture like that. Planned relocation is not an imaginary that we cannot ignore it anymore. This was a risk map from 2023 from the Copernicus. We can figure out that's all the ones what we also heard in tomorrow. Flooding the frequency and the magnitude will change. We will expect more flood events. We will accept more people have to remove because we might not provide any more technical mitigation measures for financial resources, for geomorphology resources, and so on, so on. There's many, many reasons over there. The question is how we organize it and how we make it. The first thing is like what I already told, time. This was already, it's not like relocation is I'm doing today and tomorrow I'm finished, like building a dam, like building a local adaptation on the building sites. No, this takes maybe 10 years, 20 years. So if you would like to relocate in 2015, you need to start now to think about which places might be relocated and might not worth to keep anymore. The second thing is like we need to think about or rethink about how flood risk management was designed in the past. In Austria, we see flood risk management as a project. Within 3 years, the government says to the company, you have to design it, implement it, it's done. Relocation process cannot fix in this time period. Maybe sometimes it's 6, 10, 12 years or even longer that people accept. So you need much more flexibility, which is a nightmare for public administration because you cannot control anything anymore. Maybe in 20 years, the sons are not keen anymore to stay there. You have to reopen the relocation process ongoing. This is a super problematic situation. And the last point is relocation is also not what engineers like. We treat everyone the same. We put the dam, everyone gets the same information and everything is fine. Relocation means different people have different needs and different support to organize the management process, to find a new place, and even maybe the question is what we would like to do with the people who stay there. Because the example that I showed you, this is only 20% of or 30% of the people accepted the relocation process. What are you doing with the place where 70, 60% are still in the floodplain, they still have no infrastructure? The question is, should they get compensated by the government in the next flood event? This is an open question what we are not addressing at the moment in political level. Thank you very much.